Hey, what's up, guys? Today is a sea of green. Markets are bouncing strong. So was that the bottom? Have we bottomed? Are things looking up from here? I'm going to try to answer that question. A lot of you guys are asking me about that, and I'm going to show you a few names that I'm looking at. Even if it's not the bottom, some things that are showing some strength, some potential good lows to look at. So let's get to it. A quick look at the markets here. Bitcoin, $2,400, up 4%. Ethereum bouncing strong, 16%. Dash, 177, up 5%. Litecoin, $46. Monero, $40, up 7%. Ripple up 10% to 19 cents. Ethereum Classic was the big winner today. It's been added to several exchanges in Asia, and just huge volume showed up today. We'll look at the charts here, but up 34% to $18. It was as high as almost 20 earlier. Pivx almost back to $2, up 14% today. Zcash up 17% to $2.10. Factom up 20% to $17. NEM 13 cents. And Lumens still shy of 2 cents here, up 23%. So a lot of double-digit gains today. Not surprising considering the oversold conditions we were in. Just deep corrections. We saw everything down double digits for a couple days in a row. So bounces were to be expected here. Was that the low? So if you haven't seen it, go over to nodeinvestor.com. I put together a little bit of commentary on that. Was that the bottom? And in that, I kind of point out some specific areas that I'm looking at, some things. And in that post, I mentioned, you know, here's where I think BTC's going. Here's where Ethereum's going. I thought Ethereum was hitting a low for now and most likely going to bounce. We definitely have seen that. As far as Bitcoin goes, I also expected that to bounce. We'll look at the charts, but you can see those triple bottoms there. My concern with Bitcoin, though, is it's still not broken that downtrend, and it's currently forming a descending triangle, which is a bearish pattern. But in the meantime, in the near term, I think we're going to see some more upside action. So some thoughts on that. Go check that out. I kind of talk about should you sell here, should you buy here, and my approach going into that. So let's go straight into the charts. Let's look at Antshares. Antshares is one that I'm looking at right now. I've been bullish on Antshares, as you guys know, and it looks like we hit a pretty good low here. One thing that I like about Antshares is when you look at this chart, there's very few names that you can go back and say which are still higher than they were in, you know, early to mid-June. And I mean, this is June 16th, so yeah, we've taken a big hit. It had just a huge run up. It went up to $10, $11 before pulling back, so it's back down in the $5, $6 range. But you got to remember, at the beginning of June, Antshares was, what was this, $1. It was under $2, you know, going into June, and we're still well above that. We're at $6.63 right now, so has held its own pretty good, especially considering it came from a peak of, you know, $10, $11. So right now I'm thinking Antshares is put in a good low, probably bottomed here. You know, $5 Antshares has been holding so far. We're back up to $6.63. Could it pull back a little bit? Yeah, but I think that 5's going to hold. So let's see if that's the bottom on Antshares, but that's one I'm looking at. Volume's coming in here today, big stick up. So, you know, like everything else, it's going to need to work its way up through all of this resistance, but you know, hasn't been too bad on the sell side with Antshares. Most of the big volume has been on the upside, so not a lot of sellers showed up, save for this down here, but that was a big support bar there. Let's look at Bitcoin. So here's the chart I just showed you guys. This is what I was looking at, right? So Bitcoin, this is the daily chart. It hit this triple bottom right here, and it's been holding this level of supports. And this is a Fibonacci going back from basically the 1200 move all the way up to the top at 3000. And we've been hitting this level of support 3 times now, which also happens to coincide with the key Fibonacci ratio. So it didn't really correct that much. That's a 38% level. So that's a good sign. What I don't like is we had this big break, and see how it's kind of putting in this right angle, symmetrical, you know, this descending triangle. That's typically a continuation pattern that resolves itself to the downside. So that's yet to be seen. I'll feel a lot more comfortable when we see Bitcoin break above that. So what you're going to want to look out for is, you know, this downtrend that's forming. You're going to want to see Bitcoin break above this declining resistance zone. And this level of support right now around 2300 better hold, right? So if not, then it's going to move down. If it moves down, the next level is this base that we put in around 2100, and below that, I mean, you're going to see Bitcoin potentially at 1800, 1900 or so. That's kind of this little zone back here. So not saying we're going there. Those are just the next levels of support if we do break down. I think in the near term, we're just going to keep going higher, at least until we hit this resistance around 2500 or so. That's going to be the key level to watch. So keep an eye on Bitcoin, but for now it looks like we've hit a good low. I'm still cautious here because of this longer term downtrend, but as far as some shorter term intermediate trades, it's definitely a good time to look at that right now. Let's look at Ethereum. So Ethereum, same thing. Let me take this one off here for now, but same thing on this one, right? We've been in this downtrend. We've not broken it yet, but we're really close. I think this was a good low for Ethereum. This, 190, 80 areas seems to be holding. Corresponds with this last little base we had. That's not a real strong base. That's only a few days, but still, this down volume bar was huge support, and so looks like it's going to hold. If it doesn't, then that is the next level down. As I've already talked about, that 160, 140 zone would be the next level down on Ethereum. But the thing I like about this is this whole downtrend corresponds with a very strong key Fibonacci ratio of 61.8%. And that's typically where things will bottom out if that's going to hold. So that's a good sign. I talked about that yesterday in the newsletter there and some of that article. So look at that. I expected a bounce. We're seeing that today. Some of the levels I'm looking to test here is the 240 area. That basically correlates with this descending triangle. And then the next level up, what's going to be, just basically getting back into the 300 zone. So, this is a good area to look at Ethereum if you're a long-term believer, if you like it. I don't think Ethereum's going away. It's going to stick around. Just has a lot of good momentum and a lot of projects going based off of it. So one to look at here, but we're kind of, I would say, yellow lights, not really green lights, because I'm still very cautious here. But I am looking at doing some trades and picking some things up today as far as shorter to intermediate term. Still holding Litecoin longer term here. Let's look at that chart. I was looking at this one here. So if you're liking Litecoin, here's one thing to look at. So let me zoom in here. See how we've been flagging out here a little bit. Downside volume has been very constructive. Not a lot of huge selling. I mean, most of the big bars have been on the upside, and we've been holding this this shorter term 30 EMA moving average on the dailies, and the 10 period is still well above it. So has been very good, held up very well during this down correction we had. Sure, it got hit just like everything else, but didn't do a lot of damage to the technicals. So what I'm looking at here, let me zoom in real quick to show you guys what I'm looking at. So on the very short term bars, there's been this little area of resistance that was previously support. And that's what, I was looking at the charts today, and that's exactly where we bounced into earlier. Now we're pulling in a little bit. This descending trend line is right there. Maybe by the time this video posts and by the time you watch this, we'll be above that. But that's going to be your signal. If you like Litecoin, that may be a good secondary entry point to look at it right here. So I'm watching this little zone right here. You can call that around the 48, 49. I mean, if we start seeing Litecoin above 49 and holding, you're probably seeing another leg up on Litecoin. So that's what I'm watching. I'm still holding it, haven't added to it, but watching it here closely might have another little leg up. If not, we're right at that resistance, as I mentioned. So if it doesn't want to get above that, you're going to see another leg down, and we'll see if that happens. Right now it's forming a nice little bit of a double bottom, so it would be expected to see Litecoin bounce from here. So you can see that forming right here, this little W pattern, very nice little pattern here. So that just correlates with what I'm looking at Litecoin. RSI is moving in the right direction, so keep an eye on this one here. Nothing to do yet, wait for it to confirm and get above, but those are my thoughts on Litecoin. Some of the other ones, let's look at Ethereum Classic. I mean, that was a nice move today. Look at that. I mean, we hit this really deep extended low and just rocketed up. I mean, just super strong. If we zoom out a little bit, I mean, you could just see by far the winner today on the dailies. I mean, look at that volume. Just massive volume came in, huge support coming in. That's a very positive sign, guys. The tides have turned for Ethereum Classic. So let's, right now, is it extended? Could it keep going up? It could keep going up when something has that kind of momentum. If it were me, I'd like for it to pause here, wait for a pullback. If you look at the shorter term charts, even on the 4-hour, it's well above this 10-period EMA. I'd at least wait for this to catch up a little bit. They always pull back a little bit, or they at least flatten out for a little bit. But super strong. I'm looking liking Ethereum Classic. Obviously, it's outperforming Ethereum. If you like it here, maybe wait for a little bit of a pullback down into this $17–18 range. Could bounce from there. So Ethereum Classic very strong today, a big winner today. Let's just keep marching down the list real quick. Factom saw this big head and shoulders forming, and it broke, kind of cracked below that, basically down to the old lows here. The key to look at is, can it get above this neckline again? Typically they don't. They go up to that level and they bounce back down. So really nothing to do on Factom right now. I talked about Golem yesterday on the Twitter. Golem is one, I said if I had to buy yesterday, I kind of give you guys a list and we'll look at those. Golem was one of those for a longer term play, more of a value. And the reason I said that is, look at this little cup and handle chart pattern it put in back in April-May timeframe, and had a nice rally since then. During the pullback, it's basically holding that level right back at there. Also corresponds with this little consolidation it had here. So that's a pretty decent low on Golem. Also, the RSIs here have bottomed out. It looks like it's a little double bottom, looking at heading up again. So probably not going to be the leader right now as far as outperforming some of the others, but if you like the project, if you like Golem and you're looking for a longer term, maybe a value play, this might be a good low to look at. I'd keep a good watch on it because the downtrend's technically not broken. So if it doesn't want to go up here and breaks, don't let it go much below this blue line, because then you could see a sharp leg down to this 4,000, 6,000 Satoshi level. So that'd be a big drop. Lisk, a lot of you guys have asked me about Lisk. Similar thing I'm seeing on Lisk here, right? So you see this big pattern that formed back in here, and right now we're basically right there. So very common pattern I'm seeing here recently with this market action. This old bases are kind of correlating to these support levels, which is typically what happens. These resistance points become supports and then they pop, and now they're acting as support here. Lisk, of course, got hit hard with everything else, but volume wasn't too huge on this downside. So good sign on Lisk. I know there's a lot of you guys that are really into Lisk and you guys like the project. I think a lot of these platform ones are going to do really well. Just with blockchain technology, is going to become more widespread. There's going to be room for more than one platform, I think. You're looking at Lisk, you're looking at Stratis, you're looking at obviously Ethereum, Antshares. So there's just a lot in that camp. Sure, there's a lot of competition, but I think there's going to be some room to grow on some of these. So Lisk is one of those. Let's go down the list here. Siacoin. So another one I was looking at. Let me clear some of these. I was doing some analysis earlier on some of this stuff here. So Siacoin again, guys, look at that. Multiple lows here, also correlates with the key Fibonacci ratio, and that's where we're at right now. You can see the red line I've drawn. That's been the real steep downtrend it's been. I mean, had a huge correction, was early on in the correction actually. It started off a little bit sooner than some of the others, but looks like it's a good low on Siacoin. Again, this is assuming that was the low for now, the general market low, and we're going to temporarily go up, and we'll have to reassess once we start hitting some of those key resistance levels. But Siacoin is one that I tweeted out yesterday as a potential value longer term hold. Again, your risk reward ratio is pretty low here, right? Because what happens is, say it turns on you, I mean, you don't want to let it go much below this little area, and so just kind of get out of the way and wait for it to bottom out. But it looks like that's a good bottom right now. Storage is another one that's in the same camp. It was real high on some of the lists today because they did a coin change. It was SJCX, and now they're going to STORJ. So it was just, they did another ICO with some more coin offerings, raised some capital, and right now we're at a pretty good low. Not as strong as some of the other names, but that's another one to consider here. Stratis, let's look at Stratis. Again, same thing with Stratis. Stratis had an amazing fall down. I mean, it was declining for a long time, hit this key level, and once it cracked, I mean, it was, how far down did that go below that support level? So I had pointed out this support level a few videos back, and I said, watch out for Stratis. It could go here. Obviously, the whole market cracked and just brought it down with it. And once it hit that support, broke that support, you saw Stratis go down 55% from that level, and pretty fast too. So Stratis was down in the $2 range, which was just amazing. So good opportunity if you were looking to buy at that point. It's just hard to guess these lows right now. What tends to happen is when you break this big support level, that's going to be resistance. So I expected Stratis to bounce, and it has been bouncing very strongly. So you can see we're already up, you know, 70–80% from the lows. Huge bounce. I think we can go higher, but I think we'll hit some resistance right around this level here, that level below it where it broke. If you can get above that, Stratus is going to be looking good from here, but I expect a little bit of resistance and some selling, maybe some profit taken off this bounce at that point. You can still pick it up here, but you know, your upside target now is only 20% or so. If you're looking more longer term, more of a value play, maybe a little bit here, see what it does here. If it gets above, add some more. Most likely you'll get a little bit of a pullback. That'd be another place to look at it there. But Stratis down at the lows here, I think that's the bottom for Stratis. Let's look at Stellar. So Stellar Lumens, again, not really breaking that downtrend yet. It looks like it's really close, but I mean, this thing retraced basically the whole move. I mean, from this move up, you know, I had that parabolic couple of days, and then just has since been going down, and we're right here. I think it's one of the weaker ones, not one I'm looking at personally, but that's probably the low for the move. Will it outperform and start heading up higher? You know, who knows? It's probably not at the top of my list right now personally. NEM is another one that, you know, comparably speaking, didn't really break that much. I mean, it had already come down quite a bit. I pointed out this little potential breakout that it was doing here, and it since pulled back, but you know, it got hit with everything else, cracked, but didn't really go too far down, put it in a pretty decent low right here. So you know, if it can get back above this, let's call it 6,000, 5,900 Satoshi level, NEM might be looking good. They're doing a lot of changes right now. The project's making progress. So, you know, longer term, I like NEM. I'm looking at here potentially on the breakout. I don't have any right now other than, you know, I have a little bit, but as far as a core position, I don't really have any NEM per se. You know, I'm not holding any large quantities, but what I'm looking at here, it's definitely on my short list right now. As you guys know, I like to buy strength. I typically don't like to buy these ones that have had this big downturn. You know, I tend to like to buy something that's been more on the strong side or breaking out, but this is one to look at. Monero, let's look at Monero here. This is on the USD Kraken, you know, just bouncing like everything else. Pretty decent volume came in today. Not a whole lot to, you know, Monero's been doing pretty well. I mean, it's been very volatile here recently. It was doing a nice little pattern here. Last time I talked about Monero as far as breaking out was way back here when it was breaking out above this $24 range. Haven't really covered it much since, but it's been real shaky here. I'm not really liking the pattern personally. I don't like the chart pattern that it's looking at. It's not real clean, but you know, probably bottomed out for now. Let's see what else we got here. Ripple. A lot of you guys are asking me about Ripple. So Ripple was sitting real tight for a long time, just like everything else. Got hit, cracked, but a lot of support came in on Ripple. They didn't let it fall too far before the buyers stepped in. Was that the low? You know, again, I'm going to wait till Ripple breaks across this little red line that I have on the chart here, because that's going to be a key resistance area. It just held it for so long, and when they break, it just tends to be tough to get above. So look out for Ripple here. Nothing really to do yet. You know, if you like it longer term, again, this is one to look at, but you know, this just, it's going to probably hit this wall right now. Zcash, look at that big peak, right? Straight up, straight down. Had a big bottom. A lot of volume came in right here around the 160 area. I mean, just amazing to think Zcash was, you know, $400+ not too long ago, and came all the way down to 160. So, you know, guys, this is just a good example of trend changes, right? So I like to play the trend. You know, it's an old cliche, but it really carries a lot of weight. You know, that old cliche is the trend is your friend, because when you have the wind at your back, you know, you got momentum. When the market's going up, when things are going, it's just nice to pick these little bases and you know, and moving up along the way. When you have a major trend change like this, moving averages start to come in and things start to roll over, you know, you start bouncing into this resistance. That's just a good time to just watch out, get out of the way, lighten up, protect profits. You know, you don't have to sell 100% at the first sign of a trend change, but you should be on high alert at that point, right? Because these things, once the trend changes, you can see it carries a lot of momentum, and then usually what happens is that towards the low end, right when you think it's bottomed, it accelerates, and that's typically the capitulation. But you know, do you really want to hold through that giant fast drop, right? Because what'll happen is you might get shaken out right at the lows. And look at after this bar, I mean, you know, it came down 42% from that point after already having come down from 400 down to 280. So that's tends to what happens. So, you know, when you see these momentum changes, these trend changes, I tend to get real cautious at that point, and I'll tend to just lighten up on, if I have a position that's doing one of these things, I'll get out of the way typically. What else am I looking at? Let's go over here. I already talked Antshares. Look at that one. I've talked Waves is one I mentioned, and I'm thinking Waves has hit a low here too. So you can see this big bar that came in today, massive volume right around the lows. So a lot of buyers were showing up at Waves, which is a good sign. Obviously, it still has a lot of ways to go up above this resistance. So near-term resistance on Waves is going to be this, what was previously a very solid low point, became a, you know, an area that broke. So I expect Waves to bounce a little bit here, and you know, most likely head into this little area here around 141,000 Satoshi. That's, you know, about 12% above where it's at now. So could be good for a little bit of a trade. But you know, if you look out longer term, let's zoom into the dailies. You know, basically it hit this this same base right here that it was consolidating at in, you know, late May. So we're right there, and basically that's where it's at now. Again, same pattern I'm seeing a lot, right? You had this old base, and then had the big breakout, then the big pullback. Let me take the log off on this one just so you can, it doesn't really change it a whole lot. So so Waves might have hit a low again. The area I'd look for, though, I mean, you could probably pick some up here for a short trade, but you're going to really want to see it get above this level, and then at that point, you know, that might be a good, real deep double bottom, and then it should be moving up from there. So I'm looking at it for a shorter term trade off this bounce here. Let's go to CoinMarketCap, see what else piques our interest here. So we talked Bitcoin, Ripple, Litecoin, Classic, Dash. Let's look at Dash. We haven't really talked Dash yet. So Dash was one that broke out, had a real nice move, and you know, the breakout failed unfortunately with this recent selling. So here's the daily chart of Dash. You know, the lower levels here of this recent support area have held, but nevertheless, it's been very volatile. Very tough to hold this one historically anyway. I mean, if you look at how wide this range is, you know, that's not too bad. It's a 20% range, but some people don't like that, right? You know, you're up 20%, down 20%. That's just a real shaky move. You know, from the peak, you know, we've came down 33%, which is not bad because it's basically what everything else did. Most of the small names came down much further than 30%. So Dash is, you know, it's holding its own okay. It's held this support level. Looks like that level is going to hold. If we zoom in a little bit on the hourly charts here, you can see where it's kind of turning the tide here. If these moving averages can start to get above where they're at now, that'll be a good sign. So I still like Dash longer term. I think the project's a really good project. They're doing a lot of really good things. So, you know, you guys just got to take your pick here. One thing I've learned is you can't get them all. I typically don't like to. I like to be a little bit more focused and watch just a handful than try to get a little bit of everything. So take your pick. You know, there's a lot of good options right now, a lot of good choices. Dash is definitely one of the leaders. You know, when you look at the daily chart, you know, it didn't have that big decline that came down, you know, 60-70%. So it's definitely one of the leaders. So I'd be looking at it as far as keeping it on my short list for a potential buy. As far as a longer term investment, it might be one that really pans out. But again, the overall market has to hold up. If everything goes, if Bitcoin drops again and Ethereum drops, it's going to take everything down with it, I guarantee. I mean, that's just what we've seen. Those are the leaders. We saw that here the last couple of days. Even strong names like Dash and Litecoin got hit. So things just all tend to move in tandem with the market. See if anything else. I know some of you guys asked me about IOTA. It's not one that's on my radar. Just very early on in the project. There's a lot of these new ones, right? IOTA, EOS, BitConnect. Just a lot of hype around some of these newer names. Just, with the whole ICO thing right now, I'm just being real cautious. Some of these younger projects, they might be good for trades, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of momentum and pops in those. And I'm doing some of that. But as far as more longer term plays and really investing some big capital into some of those, I'm just not right now. And that's just me personally. And you saw what happened on the downtrend. Some of those newer high flying names took some of the biggest drops. So just something, I know you guys are asking me about those. It's just not really something I'm going to really recommend at this point. I'm not saying they're bad or they don't have any long-term future. They're just very young projects and just higher risk right now. That's probably going to be it right now. Steem, let's look at one more, see what Steem looks like. So Steem here, looks like it hit a pretty good low here. It had this big support bar here. That's pretty good. But still a little bit on the downtrend. If we zoom in a little bit here, everything's kind of just forming this little bounce pattern right now. So you just kind of have to pick which ones you think are viable and which ones you want to go after. Most of these that we're looking at right now, though, have hit key support levels. You'll get Steem, it goes back to this level here, and that's really where it bottomed out at. So, a lot of these are probably hit a pretty good intermediate low for now. A lot of them have not broken the downtrend yet, but doesn't mean they're not going to here. So that's going to do it for today, guys. I hope this helps, and check out that article I wrote, Was That the Bottom? Might give you a little bit more insight as to what my thoughts are around Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'll keep you guys posted. Until next time, take care.